noticing our breathing. So I always like to begin this practice with kind of creating our intentions and our expectations of what we are looking for and what are we really doing here practicing yoga? What is this practice? And I always see yoga as this form of this moving meditation. When you think of meditation, most people, when they come to a meditation, they expect to learn how not to think, how to stop thinking. And they somehow think that if you can stop thinking, if you can stop your thoughts, then all your problems will go away because your problems are all in your thoughts. But that doesn't actually make a lot of practical sense. And when you listen to a lot of like the meditation teachings, they're not about stopping your thinking. It's more about learning how to feel. What does it really mean to get in touch with our feelings? To get in touch with what we're experiencing now in this moment, in this body, in this mind. And you can kind of begin to notice the energies that flow throughout the body, through every muscle and every tendon. And a lot of our feelings and our emotions, the things that we experience in our mind that are kind of fabricated by the mind, they're just these little subtle tensions, these subtle blockages of energy, maybe in the leg, maybe in the spine, maybe in the core. Here and there, there's just these little things that cause a little hesitation of the flows of energy through the body. And a lot of these are kind of, it's been said that the lizard brain is very powerful, but it's not very articulate. It doesn't communicate to us in words. A lot of what those feelings and those emotions and those cravings and aversions that we have in our whole life is filled with these desires, these wants of these things, and these fears of these other things. And if you really pay attention to this experience, what you're feeling in your body in this moment, in this pose, you can find all those emotions. They begin with these little subtle, very subtle, simple tensions somewhere in the body. And as we learn how to breathe through every pose that we will begin to practice, we can begin to work through those tensions, to resolve some of those feelings. Instead of avoiding them, most of our life we spend avoiding the present moment. And yoga is not a way to avoid this present moment of what we're experiencing here and now. Yoga is a way to bask in this beautiful moment that we have, creating this intention to be grateful for every breath of air that we are gifted to be alive. We have to be here to now, the mind in the body, because that's where the work is to be done. The past is a memory, future is just these potentials, these ideas and concepts. Everything originates here and now. Throughout this practice, let's maintain that intention presence, using this moment to the fullest of our ability to live as much as we can with every breath of air that we breathe, using each breath of air in every pose to resolve some of those tensions that we may find throughout this practice. With that sense of presence, we can begin to open our eyes. We're actually going to start on our backs today, starting with a little happy baby pose. We bring our tailbone down behind us and grab the outsides of the feet, trying to lengthen the spine and rocking the spine from side to side. And our hips start to feel open. Bring our tailbone rooted onto the ground beneath us. And bring our feet out long to a low boat pose. Starting with a little bit of core, keeping our feet about 2 feet above the ground. Holding our strength here in the center. Feeling ourselves solid. We can bring our hands above us. Try to touch the toes and come back down. Feeling the core awaken. Then we'll come back into our happy baby pose, rocking from side to side. Back into our boat pose, trying to find this rhythm. So this time you can press the left hand behind your head and the right hand supporting you at your side. And bring your right knee to your left elbow. And bring it back. Exhaling as you bring the knee to the elbow. And inhaling back long, lengthening the spine. Each exhale. On the third one, we're going to bring our feet back into our happy baby. Noticing the blood begin to flow through the organs in the core and the kidneys and the liver. Beginning to wake ourselves up a little bit. Bringing our legs out long. This time the left hand at our side, the right hand behind the head. And the right elbow comes to the left knee. Finding those new crunches. Moving as slowly and intentionally as possible. Coming back into our happy baby. And we'll roll ourselves forwards into a seated position for a moment. Not often that we start with that much core energy, but I want us to really begin to awaken and notice a little bit of fire energy beginning to fire up inside of us. Let's find our tabletop position. Noticing the breath as it changes between this pose and the last. We can start with a few cat-cows as we loosen up the spine. Exhaling into the cat as we lengthen the back of the spine. Inhaling into our cow as we open the heart and bring the shoulders on the back and the tailbone out behind us. Following through the pace of your own breathing. You can feel the breath energy coming down the shoulders and into the arms. Flowing down the spine and into the legs. And up the front of the body. Into our head. Let's find the tabletop, a neutral tabletop, the flat back. Bring our right arm just an inch above the mat. Give ourselves a little of the arm dangle, letting the shoulder release. Finding a couple little circles here. Setting that hand back down. The wrist just beneath the shoulder. We'll lift the left hand above the mat. And give ourselves a couple little circles to loosen up that arm. Noticing the lightness. The arm feels light as a feather as it dangles. Set the hand back down. We're going to reach our right hand out in front of us. Our left foot out behind us. And expand. Try to find as much length as we can. And we're going to exhale the elbow into the knee, crunching in. Noticing the semblance of the cat pose in the crunch in and the cow pose as we reach out. Following through with your breath, finding a slow and steadiness to the pace. Lengthening and crunching in. Feeling everything draw into the core. Everything expand from the center. And then meeting me in a neutral tabletop. Giving a moment to sway the shoulders. Remembering how light the arm feels if you just let it dangle. And reaching that arm out ahead of us. And the right foot out behind us. Finding as much length as we can. And slowly crunching it in. When we do, try to keep that knee as high as we can. Keeping that right knee up, keeping the core strong. The top of the legs are firing up. Point out through the toe and expand. Bringing it in. Keeping as much height as we can. Doing this like a cat. Here's our cow with a little bit of a back bend. Noticing our foundation strong as that right hand pulls towards the left toes. And the left toes pull towards the right hand. And our last one, very intentional about our form. Meeting me in neutral. Swaying our arms, tucking our toes behind us. And rising up into our first downward facing dog. Taking a moment to find the form of the pose as we raise our tailbone up, bow our heart to our toes, keeping the shoulders behind the earlobes and on the back. Breathing all the way into the lower back. Noticing that breath energy flowing through the spine. Once you find the form, find a steadiness here. Find something that's stable and embrace that stability as you squeeze your hands to your feet and squeeze your feet to your hands. Lifting your tailbone as you bow a little bit deeper. And then inch by inch, we're going to step our feet forward, just these little baby steps. Maybe we can sway from side to side as we do, coming up on the fingertips. Finding our forward fold, Ardha Uttanasana. And we can bow, letting the arms dangle, grabbing the elbows, the ragdoll. And hinging from the hips, we'll rise up. Growing tall, lifting as tall as we've been today. Bringing our hands to our hearts. Taking a moment to notice our mountain pose. Mountain pose is a strong pose. We should feel very strong in our foundation here. The calves and the legs firing out, pushing the feet into the ground. As we're lifting up from the top of the head, lengthening the spine. With that length, we'll reach our hands overhand. And keeping a flat back, we can swan dive forwards.
Keeping the back as flat as we can as we reach for the mat beneath us. Inhaling up, Ardha Uttanasana, halfway forward fold. And exhaling as we bow, bringing our hands to the mat. Stepping, hopping, or jumping back into our plank pose. Let's find our flat back in our plank pose. Our plank should feel like a mountain pose, and our mountain should feel like a plank pose. So we're expanding the spine, lifting from the top of the head, pushing through the feet, and pulling our hands towards our feet. Keeping the elbows tight to our sides, let's lower down very, very slowly, very intentionally, being aware of every muscle that engages through the core and through the side body as we come onto our bellies. Bring our toes to point out behind us and our hands behind us by our sides. Lifting up in the locust pose. Feeling the core. Lift your whole body up as you bring those shoulders onto the back. Trying to get as much height to the heart as you can. And releasing, bring our hands beneath the shoulders. This time again, lifting with the core more than the arms for our low cobra. The core should do most of the work, lifting ourselves into low cobra. We'll tuck our toes behind us and push back into our downward facing dog. Taking a moment to pedal out the feet, breathing the heart towards those toes, lifting the tailbone above us. Finding our energy and strength as we squeeze those hands to the feet to the hands. Let's raise our right foot out behind us, lifting it as high as we can. Bending the knee, opening the hips, so you're stacking the hips on top of one another. And then bringing that foot back out behind us, straightening the knee. Let's see if we can lift our left hand overhead. Just a little lift. And tap it back down to the mat. We will be back. Let's bring our feet back together and pedal it out. Lifting the left foot up behind us as high as we can. Bending the knee, stacking those hips, keeping the shoulders square as you feel the twist in the mid-body. And bringing the knee straight, the leg as far behind us as we can. Maybe finding the weight on the left hand as we reach the right hand overhead. Our two-legged dog. Let's bring our hands back to the mat and our feet back to the mat. Lifting our tailbone behind us, our weight in our hands as we step forwards, coming up onto the fingertips. And our forward fold. Taking an exhale into the bow. And inhaling to look forwards, curving the back. So here you want to bring the shoulders all the way onto the back and try to bring the heart forward so that we get a little bit of scoop in the back. Other kind of scoop. So you're looking up, yeah, there you go. And then you bow. It's kind of the counter stretch to the bow. We'll rise up, growing tall. Bringing our hands toward our feet. And taking a moment for our breathing Noticing every breath of air. Maybe it feels a little better to breathe now than it did in the beginning. Each breath feels better than the last. All right, sun salutation B. We're inhaling to reach up, expanding through the side body, bending the knees, finding our chair pose. Squatting those hips low as we keep the shoulders onto the back, so the shoulders are engaged. Don't push the shoulders up towards the ears, pull them away from the ears and behind the ears. So the back muscles are all firing up. And we can exhale and bow. Bring your hands outside of our feet, stepping, hopping, or jumping back into our plank. Finding that plank. Finding it strong as we squeeze the hands to the feet and feet to the hands. We're going to try to lower down a little bit slower than last time, seeing if you can take every muscle, be totally aware of what is firing up as we lower down, coming onto our bellies, opening our heart up in front of us. We can bind the hands behind our back as we find the back bend. Look at Savasana. Opening the heart as we use the core to lift us as high as we can get the heart. And exhaling back down to center. Bring our hands beneath the shoulders. And again, using that core to lift ourselves up in our low cobra. Using our arms to find a high cobra, finding a little more back bend as we slide the chin behind the ears. And tuck our toes behind us as we find our downward facing dog. Pedaling up the feet. Taking 5 beautiful breaths of air. Let that energy flow through your body, coming in from the earth beneath you. Let's raise our right foot out behind us, lifting that foot as high as we can. And let's bring that right knee to the right elbow, just above the elbow, seeing how high we can get it on that tricep of the right arm. Feeling our core strong. And exhaling that right foot out behind us one more time. And that right knee comes over to the left elbow, keeping it as high and as strong as it can be through the core, keeping that side body strong, so we're not collapsing in the side body in the twist. We're lengthening through the spine. And bring that foot back out behind us, lifting it up. And bringing the knee into the chest, into the chin, tucking into this tight little half ball. A 3-legged plank, very slowly stepping that foot between the hands. Coming up into our warrior one. In our warrior one, we want our hips squared, our feet about hip distance apart. That outside of that back foot is pulling forwards and up. So you bring that left hip forwards a little bit more. Shoulders pull down towards the mat beneath us. Try to keep your knee just above the heel. And we'll bring our hands over our heads and find our stability here for just 5 breaths of air. Breathing into the entire body and finding those little subtle bits of tension anywhere that you find them and breathing through them. Using our breath to resolve any blockage and energy that you may find. And then we'll bow, bring our hands down to frame that front foot. And stepping that right foot back. You can either meet me in down dog or take another chaturanga. I like my chaturanga. Meeting me in the dog. Lifting the left foot out behind us. Create as much length as we can to bring it as far away from us and as high as it will go. Finding the weight on that right foot and on the hands. Bring the left knee into the left elbow, keeping it as high as it will go. Onto a three-legged plank. So get a little bit higher. Keeping the core really strong, using the core to lift it up. And exhaling it back out behind us. Taking a moment to find your strength. And we're going to find the cross bodies. The left knee comes to the right elbow, or as high on the tricep as you can get it. Feeling that core fire up through that side body. Don't let the side body collapse. Keep it strong, the spine long into the twist. And exhaling that left foot out behind us. Now very slowly, as slowly as possible, bring that left knee into the chin and chest, tucking yourself into a little half ball, giving yourself as much height as you can give yourself here. Tight little ball. As high as you can get that knee and that foot above the ground, keep it there. And then step that left foot forward between the hands, lifting ourselves up to warrior one. So again, our feet should be about hip distance apart. Those hips square. Finding our form with our shoulders, opening the heart. Keeping the knee just above the heel. You can try to lengthen your stance a little bit if you want a little bit more of a challenge. And bringing our hands overhead, shoulder blades onto the back, engaging those back muscles as we engage the core, keep the ribs knitted into the upper core. Keeping the upper back strong as we lengthen the spine. Squeezing those hands together with our shoulder muscles. Giving ourselves a little momentary body scan from feet through the spine and all the way up through our hands. And exhaling down to bring our hands to the mat to frame that front foot. Stepping the left foot back. You can meet me in down dog or take the bonus chaturanga. If you stop doing them, I will stop calling them, but I have a love affair with the chaturanga down dog.
The only arm work I can get.
Is that a request for more arm balance?
No,
today?
not at all. No. Besides laundry baskets. And toddlers. And toddlers.
From our down dog, let's raise that left foot out behind us. And test our balance with the right hand reaching above us. Seeing if we can feel a steadiness or a strength. You can use the wall behind you that helps you to balance. That's not cheating, that's okay. Find your steadiness. Bring our hands back together. And try the other side. The right foot out behind us and the left hand out above us. Bring our hands and feet back to the mat. and stepping forwards, finding the forward fold. Exhaling into a bow. Bending the knees, finding our chair. Utkatasana. Letting the hips balance and sink as the lower core strengthens. Let's bring our hands to our heart. You can bring the left elbow over to the right, finding a prayer twist. Exhaling into the twist as we look at the ceiling above us. And inhaling back up to center, using our core to be our center of strength and moving from the core. You can also put the left hand on the left thigh and cross that elbow over to find the space. And then put the hands into prayer. Exhaling into the twist. Inhaling back up to center. Let's stand tall. Lift up through the head, through the fingers. Grow an inch taller than you've been. Bring our hands to our heart. Taking a breath of air. Noticing the heart beating. Noticing the simple stability of this mountain pose. Feeling strong here. Let's let the arms dangle. I'll take a little windmill. Letting the arms totally slack. Feel the blood flowing to the fingertips. Pat yourself on the back, the shoulder. Earn a pat on the back. The sun salutations are not designed to be easy, but they are fun. And that's why we have a classical sun salutation next. Modified, of course. Starting at the top of the mat. Finding our stability on 2 feet. The weight comes to the left foot as you bring the right knee into the chest, testing our standing balance, tapping the foot down as you need to, but finding stability, finding balance, finding form. Exhale and kick the foot out in front of us. Back to center. And as slowly as possible, we're going to step that foot back into a low lunge. Bring those toes to the mat. And the back knee comes down to the mat. We can square those hips, trying to bring the right hips up and forward and the left hip down and back. Bring the shoulder blades onto the back. Finding our hands behind our back as we open the heart and look up, reaching for the heel behind us. You don't have to find it. That's just what you're looking for. Feeling the core strong in the back bend. Keeping that strength with you. We'll bring our hands back to our heart. Down, frame that front foot. Lifting the back knee up the mat. Stepping the left foot back. We're going to bring our knees, chest, and chin to that 8-pointed pose. A little bit of relief from the chaturanga to loosen up the lower back. Keep the tailbone lifted. The inchworm pose, that helps you visualize it. You can wag the tail left and right. And then pull our heart forwards through the arms. Pulling those shoulder blades onto the back. So we find that back bend. Tucking our toes behind us. Finding our downward facing dog. Now you can either do this from down dog or from tabletop, whichever you prefer, depending on where your level is. So tabletop might be a little bit easier, but we're gonna bring the left foot out behind us and the right foot ahead of us. I'm just gonna tap the elbow to the knee and back. And so if you can do that from a down dog, it just engages a little bit more balance and a little bit more core. All right, let's all do it from the table. So then if we're doing this from the tabletop, one more thing I want to work on is after we expand the foot behind us, the hand in front of it, bend the knee. See if you can grab that foot behind your back. At least reach for it. If you have a strap, that can sometimes help. There you go. You got it. Part of the practice is becoming comfortable with the instability. We're never going to be perfectly stable in some of these forms. And so we have to learn how to work with the instability to become stable. So then from our tabletop, we'll try this again from the left hand ahead of us, the right foot behind us. Expanding as much as you can. We're going to do what, 4 of these elbow to knees, 4 or 5, however many you did on the other side. Try to keep balance. Try to move as slowly and consciously as you can. Moving with the breath. The slower and more controlled that you can move, the better that is. After we're even with the elbow to knees, you can bend the knee and reach the hand behind, trying to grab the toe or the ankle. Very good. And then if you kick that foot into the hand, you open your heart. Trying to keep those shoulders square. You add a little bit of a back bend as you look up. Keeping your core strong to protect the back in any back bend. Trying to lift that back knee as high as it will go. And then we'll release. Coming back to center. Let's take a child's pose. Take a moment. Bringing us back into the body, into the breath, feeling the heartbeat, feeling the blood flowing through our arms and muscles, through our back and our legs, and back up through the core. Trying to keep this mental image of the body and bringing that closer in tune with the physical body every time we imagine it. We'll tuck our toes behind us. Find our downward facing dog. And we'll lift that right foot out behind us and step it forward between the hands. Doing a low lunge on this side. Should be the opposite forwards before. We're squaring the hips. Opening the heart. You can bind the hands behind the back, the opposite finger on top, as what you did last time. You interlace the fingers, you open the heart, open those shoulders. Yeah, inhale as you lengthen the spine, and exhale and reach for the heel, adding the back bend, keeping the core strong. Keeping those ribs tight into the core muscles. Breathing into those shoulders and shoulder blades as they open up here. Exhaling as we release the bind. Bring our hands back to our heart. And bow. Hands down to frame that front foot. Lift the back knee off of the mat. You can lift that back foot up into a standing split. And slowly bring that knee forward into standing balance. Tapping the ground as needed. Kicking that left foot out in front of us. Stepping it down to meet the right. Taking a moment, breathing. Take your water. So congratulations. That was our 3 sun salutations. I like to do a sun A, sun B, and sun C for a warm-up. And so technically, that's what that is. I threw in a few poses though, so that was a little bit more than a warm-up. Okay.
I'm warmed up. Yeah.
Good, it worked. So when we're warm, it's good to bring the awareness to that warmth and that fire energy within us. And notice the heat that we have the ability to generate. There's kind of a furnace within us. We can draw our energy from within as much as we need, whenever we need it. That little image often helps as we're challenging ourselves with some maybe new poses for some of us, maybe revisiting some old poses that we don't visit often enough for the rest of us. That energy is always there within us, allowing us to find exactly the version and the form of the pose that we need. It never needs to be the perfect form. There is no perfect form. There's the form that's right for our body in this practice right now. So we don't need to reach so much for the aesthetic of the form. Find what's in tune with what our body needs. We're going to step the right foot back into a warrior 2. The back foot is perpendicular to the front, the knee just above the heel. The hips are open. Find our full wingspan. Opening the heart, gazing over the middle finger as we're squeezing the feet together with the inner thighs firing up. Flipping that front palm, reaching up and for the wall behind us. Exhaling, breathing into the left kidney. Nice detoxifying breath as we exhale all of our stale air. And inhaling back up to center. Finding the full wingspan. Lengthening the body as far away as the hands will go from one another. Feeling those shoulder muscles engage. We'll bend the elbow, finding a side angle pose. Keeping that right armpit hollowed out as we reach through those fingertips and drawing that line of energy from that back heel all the way up through the leg and the hip, and the side body, to the armpit and all the muscles on the arm, to the fingertips. Using our core to lift ourselves back up into our warrior 2. I'm going to flip that front palm, reach up, finding the reverse warrior, the peaceful warrior. This time we can take our right hand and bind it around so that the thumb goes to the left hip. Reaching for that left hip with that hand, keeping that shoulder on the back. I'm going lift ourselves up into our warrior two, but keeping that hand bound. So we're reaching around to that side body. And you can either stay here in the side ankle pose with that line there, or you can reach the hand underneath the leg and try to add a bind, the full bind. There you go. Finding whichever form works for your practice. As you open up that shoulder, and we'll bring both of our hands over our heads, holding this giant ball of energy overhead. Keeping that side body, keeping the straight line between the heel and the hand above you. Slowly, we're going to revolve until our hands frame the foot, keeping the chest parallel to the mat. And then coming down for our hands to frame the foot on the mat. Bring the back heel up off the mat and stepping this left foot back. You can skip the chaturanga if you need to. I knew what I called it and everyone did it.
Or a bunch of overcheated.
Finding our down dog. Filling out those feet. This time lifting the left foot out behind us. And the right hand out above us. Finding our balance here, opening the heart. Trying to get that hand as high above the mat as we can. You can also bring the foot so that the back heel is like in a warrior one foot, so that it's perpendicular, so that way the whole foot is on the mat. So you might need to shorten your stance a little bit to do that, but that might help you with the balance here. From here, you can reach that hand behind you and find the dancing dog. Kicking the foot into the hand lifting the foot as you open the heart and try to square the shoulders. Very good. And bringing that hand out above us and down to our downward facing dog. We're going to lift the right foot up and step it forwards between the hands, finding the warriors on this side before we do the side dancing dog. So our warrior two. The knee just above the heel, the feet squeezing together. Our full wingspan. Our arms strong. The arms are your swords in your warrior pose. So feel strong biceps. Flipping the palm. Reaching up into the wall behind. Exhaling all the stale air out of your kidneys. Nice deep breaths here. Using the core to slowly lift yourself back up into the warrior two. Virabhadrasana two. Bending the elbow. Finding a side angle. Parsvottanasana. Trying to lengthen that arm, feeling that line of energy between the heel and the middle fingers above you, keeping that straight line as you hollow out that armpit and lengthen. Looking up at the hand above you and keeping the core strong so you don't let the right side body collapse. You want that strong and using that strength in that right side body. Lift yourself back up into the warrior two. Feeling strong, shoulders onto the back. Flipping the palm. Reverse your warrior. And the bind with the left thumb around, reaching for the right hip. Coming back up into the warrior two, keeping that shoulder on the back. And the elbow, finding our side angle with the chest perpendicular to the ground. So that way your shoulders are stacked on top of one another. And you can either stay here or bring that right hand down to the mat. Or go for the bind. You can reach the hand underneath the leg and find your other hand. Feeling the legs strong as you pull them together. And unbinding, reaching the hands overhead. Both hands reaching over our heads, finding this long side body, this strong core. Lengthening those arms. Very slowly, we're going to revolve until our chest is parallel to the mat. Bring your hands down to frame that front foot. Taking the weight off of that right foot as you step it back. And find that optional chaturanga before our down dog. Leading me in Ardha Mukha Shavasana as we take a few breaths to find our stability and our steadiness. And we'll shorten the stance until we can find where our heel can grace the mat. Placing that right foot about 45 degrees can really help with the balance a little bit. I'm sorry, the left foot about 45 degrees. We're going to lift the right foot out behind us. And then lift the left hand over your head. Finding your stability in two-legged dog. Bending the knee. Reaching for that top of that foot, the dancing dog. When you get there, you can try to kick the foot into the hand and use the shoulder to lift the foot with your hand. If you're not quite there yet, you can just add some of that locust action that we had in the very beginning of the class. You're opening your heart, and your shoulders reaching onto your back, and you're reaching for the foot. That's just as good. Finding a little bit of back bend here. Very good. When we've had enough, we can meet in a child's pose. Releasing any tension from the neck and from the jaw. Wiggling our fingers as far over our heads as they will go. And we can walk our fingers over to the right. Lengthening that left side body. And walk our fingers over to the left. Lengthening that right side body. Feeling the release from the side of the shoulders. Nice, deep, consistent breaths, noticing the rhythm and the pace of your breathing. And our hands back to center. Let's walk our hands to the sides of our feet. Pick ourselves up and sit ourselves down. Seated position, however you need to get to a seat. Take a moment to cradle our feet for the butterfly today. You know where we're going now, because I love the Baddha Konasana. One of my favorite cool downs, but I don't think I do enough of this foot cradling to open the hip. It's a great practice. You can either do it with hands on the outside or hands on the inside like this. You can rock that hip from side to side, keeping the back straight, keeping a flat back, and lifting up through the top of the head as we cradle the foot. Maybe try to play a little telephone with the ear. Hello. There you go. We'll put that foot back down, lifting the other foot. Finding our cradle. Noticing the release of any tension in the hip. Evening it out on either side. Always trying to do things symmetrically in this practice. And we'll bring our feet together. Lengthening the spine as we sit up as tall as we can. Opening the feet like a book, trying to get all 10 toenails down to the mat. Opening those feet. A multi-year practice, and I have 8 toes onto the mat, but that's the intention, is all 10. And that helps you to bring the outsides of your legs and your knees closer to flat as we do. And then we bow, hinging from the hips, trying to bring our nose to the mat just above the toes with a flat back. Keeping the spine straight and lifting from the top of the head. And then coming back up to center. Take a deep breath here, and then we get to bow, this time curving the back, reaching all the way for the mat. And those hips release. Always get a nice pop out of the hips here. Coming back up to center. We're going to roll onto our backs, finding our happy baby, grabbing the outsides of the feet. Here we began, rocking side to side, giving the back a little massage against the mat. You can bring your hands to the mat and your knees together. Point those toes up and bring the toes for the mat above your head and your knees to your ears. At the height of the ears, toes. Plow pose. This is the forward fold. It releases the upper back. And then vertebrae by vertebrae, lower yourself down into a laying position for our Shavasana. As we take this moment, finding a comfortable, supported posture. Taking a moment of appreciation for the balance that the flat earth gives us beneath us, the stability of this pose. Notice all of the tensions that we've come into the class with. Most of them have melted away under this practice that we have put it through. As we engage those muscles and release them, the tension goes away, burns up in that fire we generated together. And if there are any tensions left anywhere in your body, you can just breathe and notice the energy from the breath flowing through those muscles, those tendons.
Notice your heartbeat growing steady, your mind growing calm. Finding this place of stillness and peace that resides within us. And bringing our intention back into the body as we begin to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Bending the knees into our chest and giving yourself a hug. Rolling over onto the right side body in a fetal position. Using the arm as a pillow. Feeling yourself renewed. And pushing yourself up to a seated position with your hands at your heart and your eyes closed. You should be very proud of yourselves for taking this time to step onto the mat and take care of you. I'm so grateful for each of you for joining us in this practice today. The love and light in me honors the love and light in all of you. Namaste.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. This was awesome. You did great.
It was hard.